This film is sponsored by New York Life and its dedicated agents, proud sponsors of NFL team highlight films. New York Life, the company you keep. In 1992, the Minnesota Vikings did more than achieve an 11-5 regular season record and win the NFC Central Division Championship. They restored pride and dignity to the Viking franchise and the Minnesota faithful. The Vikings returned to the playoffs for the first time in 3 years, playing with a youthful exuberance and experience that catapulted them into a 7-point lead over the defending Super Bowl champion Washington Redskins. The Vikings' defense made some noise of their own with a thunderous bang.
I bet his car is already packed to go home.
Despite the Vikings' frenzied first quarter performance, Minnesota was unable to maintain the momentum and eventually fell.
I think what you realize more so in the playoffs is that you've got to turn it up a notch. You know what I mean? And I think if it was one thing that we didn't do that. And that we started hard, we started fast, we started furious. We were very emotional, and I thought we played hard. But I think in the second half, we did not turn it up a notch, and I think that was probably the big difference.
Minnesota's postseason loss cannot tarnish the success the Vikings enjoyed in what was an outstanding regular season. A season that began on the road against the Green Bay Packers.
Best day we've ever had. Right. All this is going out to practice, but everybody's saying, I'm not making mistakes, I'm not doing anything, but just working hard. Swarming, baby. Swarming to the ball. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The Vikings opened with a flurry as the defense jabbed and the offense juked. Terry Allen broke out of the gates early, providing giddy-up to the Vikings' offensive stampede to the end zone. And with the game in overtime, Fouad Rivez stepped in to end it.
Center snap, spotted, booted, the kick is up, and the kick is good, and the Vikings beat the Packers 23-20 in overtime.
And the players are running out on the field. Now this guy looks like a playoff game. They're coming out, they're congratulating each other, picking Fouad up, they were excited.
But that was an exciting game for us because we opened with the Packers and we won the game in overtime. And I think that was probably the most memorable one. The first one is always the best one.
In Week 3, the Vikings returned to the Metrodome for their home opener as they hosted the visiting Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Fake hand up again and back to throw. Throws off the back foot downfield. Chris Carter, touchdown!
With the Bucs out to an early lead, the Vikings proved to be less than hospitable to its visitors from Tampa Bay. With Minnesota in control of the trenches, the offense began its air attack.
For a quick three-step drop. Catches arm, throws to AC. Touchdown! Chris Carter.
Chris Carter's score secured victory for the Vikings as Dennis Green and his squad prepared for Week 4's contest in Cincinnati.
Here we go. Woo! Let's go! baby. We in Boomer's ass all day. No!
The Vikings began a bit rusty as the Bengals defense sent the ball bounding. However, Minnesota rebounded quickly from their early misfortune.
Y'all be looking for every time we got a mic ready, y'all man-to-man, somebody gonna be open. I was open last time.
Minnesota's defense picked its holes wisely, which proved to be of great concern to the Bengals linemen.
You won't give up the sack, I know you will. You're all right, man. You got some good people working around you.
Despite the words of encouragement, everybody knows nobody stops All-Pro defensive end Chris Dolman.
You got to lock into him now. If you don't lock into him, you're going to get that quarterback knocked that.
Run!
All right, let's go. You knew you recognize it. Recognize it. Come on, let's go. Let's go.
Steps back, rolls to his right a few steps, cocks his arm and throws it deep for Hassan. It is caught! Touchdown! Hassan Jones! Cocks his arm, throws deep, Chris Carter. Touchdown, Vikings! CC!
Look at this. Look at this right here.
What are you guys doing? Listen to what we got to say. Hey, whatever you do, don't send it to our coaches. We can get in a lot of trouble.
What do we got next week?
We're off next week. We got Pittsburgh.
See you later.
My numbers
All right, Alex, how you doing? Hey, good luck, Coach.
Thank you. Take care.
In Week 5, Minnesota must have wondered what in heaven was happening when the Bears sprinted out to a 20-point lead in the Vikings' very own sanctuary.
He winds up, rainbows deep down the right side of the end zone.
With the Bears pulling all the strings going into the fourth quarter, the Vikings needed a big play.
Being down by the Bears 20-0 was unusual for us this year, simply because we came out of halftime and we said, hey, we got to get back in the game. The score was 13-0. They kick off to us, 3 plays, we're out. They take the ball and use 9 minutes of the clock, score a touchdown, we're down 20-0. That's when one guy has got to make a great play.
All-Pro safety Todd Scott's interception was the big play that ignited a Viking offensive firestorm.
Fake by Gannon, rolling out to his left. Cocks his arm and throws it downfield. It is caught! Viking touchdown! Vikings are coming back.
Minnesota was indeed coming back, pulling within 6 with less than a minute to play.
One play can turn the tide and stop momentum, and then start momentum in your favor. One play will never win the game for you, and one play won't lose the game for you. But it can affect the momentum in the game.
By 6 for now. Gannon under center. McDaniel in the backfield. Get to Roger Craig. Touchdown! Roger Craig! Stepping over the back of Randall McDaniel.
Scott's interception created momentum for Minnesota, a momentum that Roger Craig carried into the end zone, securing the Vikings' 4th victory of the season. In Week 7, the Vikings continued their winning ways thanks to the sure hands of number 81, Anthony Carter.
Terry Allen lone setback. 4 on the defensive line. Gannon fakes a handoff to Allen, back to throw. Cocks his arm, throws it deep downfield. Wants AC. It is caught! Touchdown!
Carter's mere presence served as a decoy, allowing quarterback Rich Gannon to spread the wealth equally.
Craig reverse to AC. Gannon to throw. Cocks his arm. Throws it deep for Hassan Jones. It is caught! Touchdown! What a play by Hassan Jones!
Minnesota's victory over division rival Detroit capped a Viking 4-game win streak. Week 10 brought more than the visiting Vikings to Tampa Bay, as fans dropped in from all directions.
How far did you come from?
All the way from Castleberry.
We're from Canada.
Canada.
We came here for this game.
Where are you from?
Manchester,
Yeah.
England.
Have you been to a pro football game yet?
No, never.
A lot of Viking fans here. They all should go the hell home. Home to Minnesota.
Despite local opinion in Tampa Bay, the Vikings made themselves feel right at home, thanks to their own house specialty, defense.
Bucks at their own 34. DeBerg fakes a handoff pressure. It's sacked. Pulled down close. Recovered by Carlos Jenkins. He's at the 20, the 15, at the 10, 5. Touchdown, Vikings.
You can hear on the sideline Sam White hollering, "Don't worry about it, don't worry about it." They better worry about it.
The Vikings defense battered opponents all season long. But perhaps the player that received the most abuse was Tampa Bay running back Reggie Cobb.
Good shot.
Get off, man.
What?
Come on, man. Well, I gotta get 100, man. Hey, the backside linebacker, Merriweather's just standing there. Nobody's getting up on him, so I can't come back.
Vikings linebacker Mike Merriweather was relentless, pounding Cobb play after play.
Where you at? I'm here with the ball. Fight.
I done got tackled about some arm tackle. Merriweather's strong as hell, man. Merriweather had an arm tackle on me, just one arm, and I couldn't get out of it.
Oh. That's the way, babe.
Hey, just keep tightening it down. Turn up the heat even more on these people. Mixing that long rock, Rudy. Keep them coming off.
The ultimate goal of the defense was not just to stop the opponent. It was to put points on the board.
He's from a shotgun now. DeBerg with a snap, retreats a couple of steps. Pump fake once, shovel pass, picked off. Intercepted by the Vikings. Chris Dolman to the 5. Touchdown, Vikings. Chris Dolman took the deflected ball.
He went and got that. Ain't much you can do on that. That was a hell of a play.
Hey, Joe, way look sweet, man. Big old tight end look. Streaking down the sideline.
You ain't gonna let us score touchdowns, Jack. Get INT.
Denny Green has really interjected his attitude and his work ethic on this football team. I think he's made them realize that it's still a game and you can have fun playing it, but at the same time, there's a lot of hard work involved, and when you step on the football field, it's all business.
It was business as usual for the Vikings special teams in Week 11, as Minnesota went to work early against the Houston Oilers. Jack Del Rio and Carlos Jenkins' objective was simple: stop Warren Moon.
Number 1, guys!
Way to go. 32nd and 12. Jenkins hits him and sacks him. Knocks the ball loose and is picked off by the defense. Parker at the 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Vikings. 63 yards. And the fumble recovery return. Jenkins forced it. Parker scored it. Moon goes a long count. Pulls off center. Back to throw. Sets up. Looking. He's going to be spinning out and sack. No, breaks away at the 25. Stumbles forward down around the 21-yard line, and Betsy Glenn powders him helmet to helmet at the 21 of the Vikings.
Warren Moon is laid on the ground. He got the first down, but he may have lost consciousness in all this play. He's getting up very, very slowly. Betsy Glenn stuck him on the carpet, just like an old carpet tack. Knocked him down. They're working his elbow.
Let's get the normal hook drop. It's a zone.
Prevent?
Yeah.
Prevent. No, you don't have to lost it. Now. Prevent?
Up by 4 points with less than a minute to play, the Vikings struggled to shut the door on the Oilers' bid for the lead.
Lorenzo White in the backfield, hands off to Lorenzo White. He goes off right guard. He slashes and a touchdown. Lorenzo White goes over for the touchdown as the Oilers have taken the lead.
In the game's closing moments, the Vikings mounted one final drive to the end zone. And with 8 seconds remaining, they put it up for grabs.
Mike Spring trips to the near side. Jake Reed, CC and AC. Gannon rolls out, rolls to that side, cocks his arm and throws the home run ball into a crowd downfield. Lots of receivers and defenders. It is wrapped up and caught. No, they say it was not caught.
While it was only the Vikings' third loss of the season, a loss is always difficult to swallow.
The big thing about losing is, for me, and I'll tell the team, is that, you know, like on Monday we talk and say, hey, I wish I could play tomorrow, but we can't because we're not, first off, we physically can't, it's not scheduled, and we're not ready because the things that we did yesterday, we haven't addressed yet and we haven't taken care of. So we need 5 more days to take care of that, but we'll do that.
With a week's work under their belts, the Vikings performed like true champions, playing to their strengths against the visiting Cleveland Browns.
Touchdown, Vikings!
Pressure after him, throws in the flat, into field, picked off. Big Miller intercepts at the 20, at the 15, at the 10, at the 5. Touchdown! Vikings, a 23-yard kickoff touchdown returned.
Spurred on by an aggressive defensive performance, the Vikings continued their winning ways.
There were certain games where our defense literally got into almost a feeding frenzy.
Cut their throat, take them out.
Let's keep the faith. All right? You gotta get in a frenzy, Mike. Come on, feeding frenzy.
Cooling out with Carl Lee, my man AP, Phoenix Wright, and the Mac Attack. What up, Houston?
Led by defensive Pro Bowlers Dolman, Thomas, Scott, and McMillan, the Vikings had 28 interceptions and scored 8 defensive touchdowns in 1992, the most ever for a Viking team.
42, back to throw Young over the middle. It is not picked off. McMillan at the 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! Vikings!
Rock their world, big dog.
In Week 13, Jenkins and Minnesota's sack-happy defense continued to dance to a winning rhythm. However, the best moves of the day were performed by Vikings running back Terry Allen. Allen stepped forward in 1992, striding to a Vikings single-season record with over 1,200 yards rushing. He did it with a style very characteristic of first-year Viking teammate Roger Craig. Craig's strength was a perfect complement to Allen's power and determination to get into the end zone in 1992. In Week 16, the Vikings, behind the blocking of Pro Bowlers Randall McDaniel and Gary Zimmerman, were in position to clinch the NFC Central Division title and were determined not to let anything or anyone get in their way.
Time to bring it. Don't save any moves now.
Not a move or hit was spared as the two teams battled to a tie score with only seconds remaining.
37-yard field goal. A
attempted by Fawad Reveiz for the win. Center snap Morris, ball spotted. Booted, the kick is on the way, and the kick is good! It's good! And the Vikings have won the NFC Central Championship.
The win not only clinched the NFC Central Division Championship, but restored the pride in Minnesota's proud franchise, a pride they carried into the final game of the regular season.
Welcome to the Minneapolis Metrodome, where today the 63rd Vikings-Packers clash unfolds. The Minnesota Vikings into the playoffs for the first time since '89, rebounding from an 8-8 season under first-year head coach Dennis Green.
The Vikings were stung early as the Packers jumped out to a 7-point lead.
Thompson, here's the handoff, crossbucket into Sidney, and Sidney plunges for the touchdown. Harry Sidney.
The picture would turn ugly for the Packers as Minnesota turned up the heat. Minnesota's offense led the charge as the Vikings defense followed suit and continued to do what it did best the entire season.
Second and goal from the one handoff. Allen dives and touchdown. Terry Allen behind Randall McDaniel. Terry Allen, 15th touchdown of the season. Back in their own 48. Johnson in motion. Salisbury to throw. Looking. Throws downfield. Wants Jake Reed, the big wide receiver. It is caught.
The Vikings put the icing on the cake in the fourth quarter, solidifying a 20-point victory and an outstanding 11-5 regular season. Dennis Green and the Vikings finished the 1992 season champions of the NFC Central Division, an accomplishment that, combined with their first-round draft pick in 5 years, is sure to contribute to the Minnesota Vikings' continued success and winning attitude.
Hi, I'm Steve Sable of NFL Films, and I'd have to agree, the Vikings really did exhibit a winning attitude in 1992. Denny Green, in only his first year as head coach, directed Minnesota to an 11-5 record, a trip to the playoffs, and the championship of the NFC Central Division. Not bad. And you know, next season's not looking too bad either. Thanks to the Vikings' first-round draft pick in 5 years, combined with some added new players, the 1993 Minnesota Vikings are taking shape for another winning season.
Minnesota Vikings, may I help you? No, I'm sorry. Mr. Walker is pursuing other interests. No, Mr. Millard is exploring an opportunity in Seattle. Who? No, Coach Green felt he could benefit from a change of scenery. No. We booted his butt, too.
We were carrying a lot of baggage last year, and again, with the coaching change, that helped us to kind of alleviate a lot of that and kind of put that behind us and to start fresh and get into a new season.
Here we go, AC! Here we go! Here we go! All right, team! All right, team! Let's go, defense!
Coach Green really set the tone the first day he was here that everybody on the team is going to have a role, and we need everybody to win, and we need everybody to perform their role to the best of their ability, whether that's being the guy who gets the 15 sacks or being the nickelback who comes in and just covers the best receiver 3 plays out of the game. Whatever it is, we need everybody, and no role is more important or less important. And he sold that, and the team has really bought into that, and now we've got everybody contributing.
In 1992, Vikings head coach Dennis Green took the bull by the horns, manhandling opponents to the turf all season long.
For us to move to the next level, we have to improve offensively. I think there were spots last year where we showed some improvement. We would like to see our passing attack be better, more productive. We like our down the field passing to be better. We like our overall running game was there, but our overall offensive passing attack would be the area of improvement.
In 1993, the Vikings will have an old pro added to the roster. Veteran quarterback Jim McMahon will contribute his Super Bowl experience and strategist expertise to the Vikings' offensive attack, which was led in 1992 by number 16 Rich Gannon. The job of Viking quarterback will be made more enjoyable in 1993, thanks to a receiving corps anchored by AC and Chris Carter. Minnesota looks for its special teams to maintain the same intensity and flair they demonstrated in 1992.
Got great team speed. Our linebackers are fast. Our defensive line is very quick. They can put pressure on the passer. We got very quick people in the secondary, and speed probably is the biggest thing for us.
The Vikings' defense was tenacious in '92. Don't expect that to change. The Vikings defense looks to be as fast and furious as ever in '93.
So our strength has to be our ability to take that '92 season and now become stronger as a football team.
So there you have it, a peek at the 1993 Vikings. And you know, the addition of a proven veteran quarterback like Jim McMahon could pay dividends immediately. After all, it wasn't that long ago the Vikings signed an old veteran quarterback by the name of Tarkenton. Number 10, Fran Tarkenton. He played in more games than any quarterback in history, and when he retired in 1978, he had broken every meaningful passing record. But his passing wasn't the only quality that made him special. He was the man who seeded the word scramble into the vocabulary of pro football. He once said, "I never thought a quarterback should be a statue." Well, ironically, he has become one. His bronze bust is mounted on a pedestal in the Hall of Fame. Now, sit back and enjoy the story of one of the Vikings' all-time greats, Fran Tarkenton.
It seemed that Fran Tarkenton was always going uphill to reach his destination. His journey began in 1961, when as a quarterback for the newly formed Minnesota Vikings, Tarkenton gave new meaning to the term advancing the football. In an era when football purists believed solely in the drop-back, stand-up quarterback, Tarkenton and his scrambling became an object of scorn and ridicule. Without size, a strong arm, or a solid offensive line, Tarkenton achieved success with a pair of quick feet and a strong sense of resourcefulness.
My high school coach instilled in me the fundamentals of playing, but also to never give up on a play. If I went back in the pocket to throw a pass and the protection broke down, he encouraged me to make something happen. I was always distressed when I saw quarterbacks, when their protection broke down, just to give up and fold themselves in the pocket and accept a 7 or 8 yard loss and go to the next play. And if you didn't get protection, they would lose. And I just made up my mind when I got up to pro football that I was not going to give up on a play ever. That if the pocket broke down, if the protection broke down, I was going to run, scramble, do whatever I had to do to make something out of the play.
Since Tarkenton was one captain who had no intentions of going down with the ship, every Viking pass play ultimately turned into a lifeboat drill. Viking linemen didn't mind the overtime work necessary to protect Tarkenton because their efforts often paid off. Defensive players, on the other hand, didn't appreciate the extra exercise.
Tarkenton was a pain in the He'd gamble, he'd run anywhere. I mean, he'd run up in the stands if he had to. He's one man that we tried desperately to end his career. We tried, and I must say that in this day and age, we tried desperately to get rid of him. Because on a hot day in the Coliseum chasing Fran Tarkenton, it was not what you wanted to do.
I always hated Tarkenton. I really did. I mean, that little wimp would run around out there for hours and hours and hours, and we had to chase him wherever he went. Sometimes he'd run 40 yards back and forth and up and down the field, and at the end of a game against Tarkenton, your tongue was right on the ground.
While defenders were lapping up the turf, head coach Norm Van Brocklin was busy licking his wounds. Van Brocklin was from the old school, and he suffered each time Tarkenton turned a carefully calculated drive into a kindergarten recess. The Dutchman's frustration eventually turned to resentment, and Tarkenton and his schoolyard antics were sent to another playground.
They fell out in 1967, and it was inevitable. Dutch had a huge ego, so did Tarkenton. Tarkenton wouldn't take his crap anymore. He challenged him on a plane a couple times, Dutch did. Accused him of playing for himself rather than the team. That was a bad accusation. It really didn't make any sense. So Tarkenton said, well, goodbye.
Traded to the Giants, number 10 quickly found the accommodations in New York to be far worse than Van Brocklin's doghouse.
When I went to that team, it was the worst football team I've ever seen. It was pathetic. It was just absolutely pathetic. I've never seen a team with so little talent.
Despite the lack of talent, Tarkenton helped the Giants become winners by doing what he did best. Fran hauled New York up from last place to a level of respectability. However, after 5 seasons, Tarkenton's towing services were sent back to the Vikings. In Minnesota, the trend-setting Tarkenton broke another of pro football's commandments. Thou shalt only control the ball on the ground. The sinning signal caller became the first quarterback to use the short pass the way other teams use the run.
I was a strategist. I knew where to throw the football. I wasn't blessed with all the physical skills in the world, but those things, understanding the game, knowing defenses, knowing offenses, being able to call plays, being able to read defenses, I felt that I could do that as well as anybody. I took great pride in that.
People always talked about his weak arm, but Fran Tarkenton was the master quarterback of all because he got you to do the things that he wanted you to do. He never played against his weaknesses. He always played against yours. If he couldn't throw the long ball, he'd throw the short ball to death until you got all the way up close and tried to stop the short ball, and then he'd throw the medium long ball, which in the end would get you nonetheless.
Tarkenton perfected a personal style of play that helped Minnesota become one of the game's most dominant teams. In 7 seasons, the Vikings won their division title 6 times, and the weak-armed quarterback, who people said would scramble his way into obscurity, had earned every honor a player could win, except one. 3 times, Tarkenton took his team to the Super Bowl, and 3 times they came away losers.
I guess it was just the ultimate disappointments. I cannot tell you the feeling of emptiness it gives you, of hopelessness it gives you. You feel like the world's against you, because they are. You see, they don't remember or look kindly at the second-place team in the Super Bowl. They look more kindly at people that never even made the Super Bowl than the ones who did and didn't win.
Fran Tarkenton never wore a championship crown, but his unyielding desire to succeed made him a king among quarterbacks.
I really always believe this, that the people that make it in the world are not necessarily the smartest or the strongest or the fastest or the prettiest. The people that really make it in the world, whether it be the football world, the entertainment world, the business world, are the ones that outlast the others, the ones that persevere. Yeah, they get knocked down, they get bloodied, they get disappointed, they get discouraged, but somehow they got the strength of character, the sense of presence to get back up and go again.
His career was a constant uphill struggle, but when he retired, he stood alone on the summit. Fran Tarkenton completed more passes for more yards and more touchdowns than any quarterback in history.
Fran Tarkenton was the best quarterback that's ever played professional football because you never achieve greatness without durability. Fran Tarkenton had, in addition to all the physical abilities, all the records he had durability. He played every week. In my mind, there's nobody played football at that position that was better than Fran Tarkenton ever.